Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend and coach, mentor, tour mentor, and all around good guy, John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Hey Jim, I feel better after that introduction.
Yeah.
I feel better. I feel better about myself already.
Good. Good. Right
But
on.
I'm doing well. It's I always look forward to recording because I get to
Yeah.
hang out with you,
It's fun.
and also we get to talk about things that are important to
Yeah.
our listeners and watchers. As a matter of fact, the podcast today is by special request of
Right.
our listeners to talk about a subject called Right People, Right Seats, a
Yeah.
church hiring playbook.
Good. Good. Yeah. It's funny. I know, the average church, I think you're trying to hit around 50% of your income going towards salary. I mean, it's a huge expenditure financially,
Mm,
but more than that, emotionally, right? You get the wrong person on the wrong seat, and even though they might not be effective, they're somebody's pastor, and you're gonna have to let them go or move them over or demote them, or this is something you better do right the first time if you can. And maybe today's teaching will help people not make some pretty common mistakes, that cost them in the long run, especially
sure,
emotionally, right? As a leader,
that's right.
it's hard, man. It's hard because you love people and you're gonna mess up their life now to some degree by doing this. So hit
That's right.
us. What do you got?
So just to level the playing field here,
Yeah,
let's start with this. Nobody bats 1,000 when it comes to hiring,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
and the goal here isn't to be perfect. The goal is to reduce risk.
Good.
Hiring is about risk management in many ways.
Yeah.
And so hopefully what we get to explore together today, Jim, will help give some ideas about
Yeah.
how to hire better. I didn't learn HR in college. I learned HR in the corporate world. I learned
Yeah.
about hiring well,
Yeah.
firing well in the corporate arena. I
Yeah.
wish I would have learned that before I was a pastor, and because
Yeah.
I did not know how to do either very well.
Yeah.
And sometimes I lucked out and we got a peach, and sometimes I didn't luck
Yeah.
out and
We got a
we
pit.
struggled. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, especially with ministry, every hire, it's more than just filling a role, Jim. It's really we're bringing a person onto our team that we hope will
Yeah.
steward the mission
Well, it's
with
huge.
us.
Yeah, it's huge.
A great hire strengthens the team. It
Yeah.
brings unity and uh, momentum, and it
Yeah.
and it fuels impact.
Yeah.
A bad hire does the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
can create division, drain energy, and stall momentum.
yeah.
And so, hiring with wisdom, with patience, is essential, I think, to
Yeah.
building a healthy, thriving not just church, but business as well. This is true in business. This is true in the church world. So today, what I'd like to do is focus on improving our hiring batting average.
Okay. Good.
And next week, we'll look at the opposite side of the equation. When what do we do when we've swung and
Mm.
we've missed?
Yeah. Well, that's
And
hard.
how do we handle that? But so these next two pods, Jim, are going to be a little more technical, I think, than normal.
Okay.
And so I forewarning our listeners and watchers, grab a cup of coffee if you need to.
Right.
We'll try to make this interesting and fun, but there's some real technical pieces
Yeah.
to this today.
Yeah. Take notes.
That's right. So let's start with some general hiring principles.
Okay.
These are just things that any hire you and I would suggest this is for paid and unpaid, by the way.
Yeah.
Anybody you bring onto your team.
Yep.
So first of all, effective team building begins with hiring
Yeah.
or adding to your team, and
Yeah.
how you start sets the tone
Yeah.
for everything that follows.
Yes.
Uh, John Maxwell said this, and it keeps reverberating in my ears. None of us is as smart as all of us,
Yeah.
and none of us are as good as all of us.
Right.
And if God has given you a dream, a vision
Mm.
for the future, I'm pretty sure that along with that, you're going to need a team
Yeah.
to get to where God wants you to go.
Yep.
So that's the first one. I'll just give these to you, Jim, and then I'd love to
Okay.
hear your
Yeah.
thoughts. So, secondly, patience in hiring is essential. I mean, it is so easy to panic.
Yeah.
I haven't had a youth pastor for 3 months. We're starting to see the attendance start to there's
Yeah.
attrition and
Yeah.
there's some rumblings like, what are you guys doing? Where's our new youth pastor? And
Yeah.
there's pressure, and that's real.
Yeah.
And we can panic, we can try to just plug a hole. And I've learned that through the hard knocks of this, that when I panic and when I'm impatient, I tend to lower my batting average
Yeah.
when it comes to hiring.
Yeah.
An effective hiring process takes time. I'll say this once, we'll probably say this more than once in this episode today. It's better to have an empty seat than a seat filled with the wrong person.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I,
It's
I want to stop there because that one seemed to land with you.
well,
Give me your
I've
thoughts.
I've had both. You know, we came here, followed the founding pastor 30 years ago. And, you know, as a person's energy is draining and he's just kind of, you know what I mean? We didn't have the right people, the best people in the right seats. Some people were there for the absolute wrong reasons. Some people are very territorial about their
Mm,
position, though they weren't good at it. And here comes this young kid, 29 years old, with all this new vision, and they've got the Salvation Army band like playing hymns. You know, it was just like, no, no, we're going to change this. And it was really hard because it was hard on them, but I having the
yeah,
wrong people, you will produce the wrong result. It's just so, but then it's really hard to say, hey, you know that thing you've been doing for free around here for the last 25 years? It'd be great if next Sunday you didn't do that. Like, how
mm,
do you say that, right? So that's next week, I
yeah.
know, but
That's next
I
week. Yeah,
agree that the ball game is often won long before the ball game begins, based on the team, the practice, the plays, the attitude. So that can be a long journey, and I would say that too. Don't get discouraged. You know, be patient was one of your phrases there. I agree
yeah,
completely. It is better not to have a ministry than it is to have a ministry poorly led. It's better
that's right.
to. So do you have a nursery ministry? We don't. Why? Because we don't have anybody here that likes babies. That's a more honest statement to a visiting family than to say, of course we have a nursery. And there's this lady back there with like a piece of straw stuck in her hair. She's red because her blood pressure is up. You know, she's got four crying kids at her feet, and the whole place smells like a diaper. Like that. It's better not to have that nursery than it is to
That's
have that nursery saying you have one when you really don't, you know?
yeah,
So you can't give away what you don't have. So you train, you pray for laborers, but yeah,
yeah.
you don't pretend we have a youth ministry when it's some lady in the basement of the church with a bouffant hairdo and metal folding chairs with a phallograph. That's not a youth ministry. That's a drug problem. Those kids got drugged to church, you know? And those poor kids
Oh
all
boy.
deconstructed their faith when they were old enough not to do it anymore because it wasn't real. It was,
Yeah.
I don't know, the factory
Well,
of the church with bad people in the seats, you know?
well, folks, those of you who are listening and watching, I thought this might be a little dry today, but Jim, you always deliver. You always make it fun.
Oh, this is one of
I
my
appreciate
pains. You
it.
talk about passion, pain, proficiency. One of my pains is
Yeah.
like bad church. You know,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's bad.
So, yeah, patience. Uh, Here's a third general principle is that great churches are built by great teams.
Yeah,
I've yet to experience or be aware of a church that's vibrant just because of the lead pastor.
yeah, yeah,
And so look, some of us are under the impression we can do it all ourselves. That's a total lie.
no,
That it's better if we do it all by ourselves. That's a
nope,
lie.
yeah,
Uh, a great church, and when I mean great church, I mean a healthy church. I mean a
yeah,
vibrant church, a
right,
church that has is ascending to its God-given potential.
yeah, right. There it is. Yeah,
Yeah, you got to have a great team. And
yeah,
a great team is not just a talented team. It's a team that's aligned with the vision, the
yeah,
mission, and the values of
yeah,
your organization. And then let me give you one more, is that the stability of your staff is it's a great predictor
Hmm.
of fruitfulness
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah.
We've all heard of pastors who churn through associate staff uh, and leave a trail of relational wreckage behind them.
Sure. Yeah.
I think this, Jim, that build not just building a staff, but growing a staff is one of the hardest things a lead pastor ever has to do.
Yeah.
I think it's in the top five.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Sure.
and so the longevity plays into fruitfulness. We all know how long it takes to get traction. You bring a new person in, you bring a new pastor in. Here's what we've observed now. This is all anecdotal,
Hmm.
but we think it's probably about 7 years before that pastor really is the pastor in the
Yeah.
minds of that congregation.
Yeah.
Somewhere, and now it could be shorter, it could be
Yeah.
longer.
That wasn't overly encouraging to people in year five, by the way, but I agree. Yeah. I was here 10 years before the people in the community stopped calling me the new pastor at the Assembly of God Church. 10
There you go.
years. Oh, you're the new
Yep,
pastor. Like I've been here a decade, man, you know?
that's
Yeah.
right. And so, but let's think about that at the staff level.
Yeah.
How long does it take? I remember being brought on board at Saginaw First Assembly
Yeah.
back when I had hair, and it was a great youth group already.
Yeah.
It was
Hmm.
very strong, but those kids didn't warm up to me right away.
Nope.
It took. I think youth are faster in a sense. Like it took them a couple of years, and they
Yeah.
finally figured out, I'm a good guy,
Right.
and uh, but think about the the redoing of that over and over again
Mm.
if you're burning through staff,
Yeah.
either because you're hiring, you have a very weak hiring process, or you're not treating them properly.
Right.
And and so staff stability is in your best interests. And so these are some of the general pieces of it,
Yeah.
Jim. Any thoughts before now we're going to get really into the technical
Yeah.
part here.
It reminded me of a story. I had like 3 days off one time, and it was the middle of winter, and I booked a flight for my family to go to Florida. We got to Atlanta, and there was a thunderstorm that hit. And if we don't get out now, we're going to miss a whole day. We only have 3 days. It was every dollar we had just to go spend 3 days with grandma, yeah, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
I looked, and there's a pilot. He's got the phone in his ear. He's standing at like the little gangway, and he's talking. And he turns around. He turns around after talking to radar or whatever. I'm standing there saying, "Man, come on, let's load up this plane. Let's get out of here. I need a vacation. I'm exhausted. Please." And he said, "Sir, I'll never forget." He said, "Sir, you'd rather be down here wishing you were up there than up there wishing you were down here. Let me do my job." And I think, again, I think you'd rather not have a youth ministry wishing you had one than to have a youth ministry wishing you didn't. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
just wait for the clouds to clear, wait for God to provide. Don't be in a hurry. I really like that piece of patience because it's, I don't know. I like things to move quickly. That's
Mhm.
why I bring other people into the process. I know the right guy I'm going to hire, and my wife will say, "Nope, we need 3 resumes." And they all need to go through an interview process, and then the staff needs to meet them, and the deacons need to meet them, and they need to come
Yes.
here for a while, come live with us for 3 days with their kids, so we get to see their family dynamic. And like, oh, I knew he was the right guy. Well, she saved me from a lot of bad mistakes through the years, and our
Yes.
average tenure is probably 15, 20 years, I would imagine by now. So it's a very important being hiring slowly and firing quickly. I've heard people say, I don't know about the firing quickly,
Yes.
but certainly hiring slowly I think is really important because no one ever said, you know what our problem is in our marriage? We got married too late. They always say
Mm.
we got married too soon. We didn't know
Yeah.
enough before we made this commitment. So again, 30 years of pastoral ministry, no one's ever said to me, we waited too long to get married. But I've heard
Yeah.
dozens of times, we got married too soon. So just before you do it, just take your time, ask for counsel, bring other voices, other minds, and it'll become obvious in time. So that's my thought. I love that point. Be
Awesome.
patient.
So let's talk about a grid that you can
Okay.
develop and you can put candidates through.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so here's some things that over time that we've developed we've thought through and we've helped churches with. Number one, clarify your vision.
Hmm.
It's important to do the best you can to ensure every hire aligns
Yeah.
with the destination you're wanting to reach. We think about vision this way, that vision has to do with destination. It has to do with where we want to land in the next few years. And so every hire, there must be alignment with that destination you're wanting to reach.
Yeah.
So if you're fuzzy on your vision before you start hiring, spend some time with the Lord,
Yeah.
fasting and praying with your journal open, get clarity on what's the end zone for us, what's that
It's good.
destination,
Yeah.
because who you hire should be in line with your vision.
Yeah.
So clarify your vision. If you haven't identified and defined core values, this would be the next one.
Hmm.
Take some time to do that.
Yep.
The values your team have to embody in order to thrive in your culture. We
Yeah.
have a certain culture at Converge Coaching. We're
Hmm.
very picky about who joins the team.
Yeah.
And we realize that we're not for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean it just means that if you want to be part of what we're doing here, we do
Yeah.
things a certain way. And when things get done that way, there's reward. When things
Yeah.
don't get done that way, there's conversation. And if
Yeah.
and if that conversation isn't helpful, then we have a harder conversation
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
Uh, Identify and define core values. Now, these first two pieces, Jim, I think can be a little intimidating for people, for
Hmm.
pastors who haven't really done much vision work, haven't done much
Right.
values
Yeah.
identification work. So, if you need help with that, reach out to us. We can
Yeah.
help you with that.
Yes, we can.
convergecoach.com. We wanna help you figure that out because we think these are the building blocks of good hiring.
Yes.
Know where you're going,
Yeah.
and then know the behaviors
Right.
that you are, the behavioral hills that you're going to die on your way to the destination.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to have a great vision and then run all over people to achieve your vision.
Absolutely.
You may
Yeah.
get to the vision, but you'll have a bunch of bitter people on your
Yeah.
team.
Right.
I want to stop there. These first two, Jim, love to hear your thoughts on.
Well, you used a phrase as something like a successful church. And what I loved about that phrase, you didn't say a numerically attendance or dollars or program or square footage, successful church. You said a successful church, and then you defined it as a healthy, the lost are being saved, people are being baptized, strangers are becoming family, kids are running to class and crying when they have to leave.
Hmm.
People are early because they want to fellowship with other people. They stay late because that four-way is just as important to them as the altar is. Like that's a thriving church. And it's not, I think one of the mistakes we make is that I need a great worship leader. Well, often really talented, really gifted people. I mean, just be careful not to hire the pretty girl because the reason she doesn't know how to drive a car is because she can flirt her way out of a traffic ticket, and the reason sometimes really talented, really gifted people don't perform well in the long term is because they haven't had to. Everybody wants them on their team. So I would
Yeah,
say, even to the point of find people, maybe even in your pew right now, that you can give responsibility to, and then they kind of
that's
become
right.
part-time, and then in time get promoted. You know them, you've known them for years, you've seen their work, there's no surprises. You say, yeah, but they're a 7 and I want a 10. Well, there are tens, they are available, but you tell me the 10 that showed up from the blue and stayed for 10 years. They just don't. They move on to the next
Yes.
place and the next place, the next place often. So I'll take a plow horse that's a 7 over a race horse that's a 10 any day of the week because I think it helps build that environment you're talking about. This is a successful church. It's reaching potential. It's not reaching numerical goals. What is the potential of the staff and these elders and these attenders and our dollars and our prayers? What's the potential of that? I think that's a much better and better to define and easier to define than we just we want the happening place in town. Well, remember,
Yes.
if when people leave the happening church because it's no longer happening and come to your church because it's happening, they're going to do the same to you. when the
That's
worship
once you're
leader
not
moves
happening.
on to go do
Once
the
you're
next
not
thing.
happening.
Yeah, there's a new kid in town. Let's go see that. So building a legacy, a family, a kingdom ministry. It's that's what you're talking about, bringing the right people and putting them in the right seats, being honest. We'll talk about this
Right.
next week, but honest with the people that are in the wrong seats because there's a clear
Yeah.
vision, and helping people find their place, whether it's on your bus or on somebody else's bus, is really
There you
part
go.
of the difficult part of leadership. But you won't build something great without having these skills.
That's right. I I would rather have a 7 who's a values and vision fit
Yeah.
than a 10 who isn't.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd rather have a 7 who is hungry, who's teachable,
Yeah.
who has high EQ
Yeah.
than a 10 that doesn't have those things.
Yeah.
And so we don't compromise here
Yeah.
at all when we bring people on our team. If they're a 10, hey, we've got a lot of 10s on our team, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but they are also high character,
Yes.
high high EQ,
Yeah.
amazing, kind, compassionate,
Yeah.
great teammate type of people. So when you find those people, I mean, that's rare.
Yeah.
Um, but this is where I think we get into some of the trouble with our hiring. I can already hear the wheels spinning in some pastors who are listening say, this seems like this takes a long. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. But it
Mhm.
is worth it's worth it. It's so much easier to do this on the front, like everything in life. It's
Yeah.
so much easier to do a good job on the front end than it is to remediate a poor job
Yeah.
after the fact.
It
So,
is. Yeah.
yeah, identify and define your core values. Thirdly, determine the traits of right people. We said right
Yeah.
people in the right seats.
Yep.
So, what does that look like
Yeah.
for your organization? What kind of character are you wanting? What kind of mindset?
Hmm.
What kind of behavioral uh, ethic are you looking for there?
Yeah.
What kind of work, rest, maturity
Yeah.
are you looking for? If you're a workaholic, you can't be on our team.
Nope.
It's just the way it is. And if some of
Yeah.
the people on our team are listening to us today
Yeah.
and, and you've been transgressing, um, we'll have a conversation about that. I
Yeah.
have to fight for that in my own life,
Yes.
and I expect our team to fight for that as
Yeah.
well. So determine what does right people mean in your environment. You've got to figure
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah.
Jim, a thought on that? I can see the
Yeah.
wheels
Well,
turning.
what I'm thinking is I almost I remember I was single one time in a young adult ministry. They said, write down on a piece of paper the ideal spouse that you're asking God to basically prepare for you. And that was nice because, she looks like this and she has hips, lips, and fingertips and loves Jesus and, all that kind of stuff. And then they came around and said, now, how would you, what sort of a man do you have to be to attract a woman like that? In order to get an awesome woman of God, you're going to have to be an awesome man of God because you don't catch bass with stink bait. You know what I mean? You catch catfish with stink bait. That's the way things work. So I think the same thing kind of comes back. I was thinking like I describe the ideal staff member. Now ask yourself, will you be the ideal pastor to that ideal staff member? And I think working from both directions, create an
That's really
environment
good, Jim.
where an
Yeah.
awesome team member wants to join your team, regardless of the paycheck, regardless of if it's rural or suburban or urban. Just what sort of a team can you create that great people will be attracted to, even if it requires a cut in pay, because they see a vision, they're valued for who they are. You set them up to succeed. You give them the right tools and the right environment, and the right work rest rhythms. You want them to take vacations. You want them to take a sabbatical. You want them to read. You want them to write. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
instead of saying just come lead 3 great songs a week. I don't. I want more from you than that. And I think even the in the pretty girl analogy I gave a moment ago, they're like, really, you want me for more than just what I do on the stage for 20 minutes on a Sunday? Like, yes,
Hmm.
I want you
Yeah.
to be a music pastor. I want you to find people and teach kids how to play guitar.
Yeah.
I want you
I
to
like it.
teach our congregation how to worship. I want you to produce an album. I want you to, whatever it is you're looking for, you have to be the right leader for that. And I think you say, I just want 3 great songs a week. You'll get the
Yeah.
wrong person. So if you want an AWOG, we call it an awesome woman of God, you got to be an AMOG. You got to be an awesome man of God. And we had a club
There
called
you
the
go.
Malawogs, awesome men of God looking for awesome women of God. So, whatever the analogy is or that the
Yeah.
acronym is for this. But
So Jim, you said something really important there that jumped out at me, and that's so we define these traits. What are the, you know, and for us, we know what those are.
yeah,
But then ask yourself, as the person leading the hiring,
yeah,
am I that guy?
yeah. Would that guy
Am
want
I
to work
that
on my
gal?
team? Yeah,
And it's such an important piece because we know this to be true. You will reproduce in your staff who you are.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't help that. That's a law
yeah,
of nature.
yeah,
And so I'm glad you
mhm,
brought that up. So determine the traits of the right people.
yeah,
Now we're going to get super technical. You should
yeah.
have a definition of the role for each
Yes.
position, whether
Yep.
it's paid or
Or
non-paid.
not. Yep. Absolutely.
We call it a ministry description.
Yeah.
And this is a clear, concise, one pager,
Yeah.
usually,
Yeah.
that includes, and I'm just going to list these. And if you're listening or watching, you can download show notes
Yeah.
uh, for this. These are in the show notes, but there should be this description should have a summary of the rule, 4 to 5 specific desired outcomes
Hmm.
of the rule, the purpose of this position. Here's the key responsibilities,
Yeah.
and here are the communication expectations upstream
Yeah.
and downstream.
Chain of command. Yeah.
And we lay this all out so there's no ambiguity about what we expect this particular person to be doing.
Yeah.
It's in writing, it becomes sort of the format and
Yeah.
foundation for review, for
Yeah.
accountability, for reward, for one-on-one meetings that you have with your team. Who are they going to report to, and
Yeah.
who are they going to lead, and what are
Yeah.
the communication expectations around that? Now,
Yeah.
that might seem a little overwhelming to you.
Yeah.
If you feel overwhelmed by that, we can assist you with that. We've developed I think 60 ministry description templates
Yeah.
that contain
Mm.
these pieces and parts. All you have to do is go to convergecoach.com, click on the start a conversation link, and
Yeah.
request those.
Yeah.
And we'll work on getting those to you.
That's brilliant. Because I think it's a daunting task. How do I know what they're supposed
It
to do
is.
every minute of every day? Is we'll just figure it out. Like, no, this is the game we're playing. This is the position you play in it. This is how we win that game.
That's
I mean,
right.
what sport would we have where scores
Right.
being kept that wouldn't have those 3 elements? Yeah.
Right. So we can help you with that. Just reach out to us. So let's kind of recap here. We got a couple
Okay.
more, but clarify the vision, identify and define your core values,
Hmm.
determine the traits of the right people,
Yeah.
define the role for each position. Number 5, create a candidate profile for every hire. That
Yeah.
includes a resume, right?
Yeah.
That includes an application. That includes a list. I believe their profile should include a list of the non-negotiable traits for that particular role, and then some of the nice to have qualities.
Yeah.
You can't have 20 non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Uh, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who checks all 20 boxes,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you should have 5 or 6. If these boxes don't get checked, it's an absolute no.
Yeah.
If they do get checked, here's like 3 or 4 maybe nice to haves
Yeah.
that we'd like to check. But so part of the profile is a resume. It's a list of must haves and
Yeah.
nice to haves.
Yeah.
And then I think we have to answer 5 questions. The
Okay.
part of this profile, it has to do with capability. Are they gifted for the role?
Yeah.
How do we find that out? One of my favorite assessment tools for that is what you've developed, Jim, the
Mm.
three circles.
Yeah. Passion, pain,
Why
proficiency.
is greater than what?
Yeah.
It's one of the
Yeah.
best tools I know.
Yeah.
Again, it sounds like a commercial for you,
Yeah.
but I don't mean it to be. It's just one of the
Yeah.
best tools I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
there are others that I would recommend on top of that.
Yeah.
Clifton Strengths Finder 2.0, amazing.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I took that about 5 years ago just to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just fun.
And it was shocking. Like, that's me. Like,
Right. Right.
that's who I am.
Yeah.
Those are my top strengths, my top five. It was so
Yeah.
accurate. So,
Mm.
are they gifted for the role? Compatibility, character. And we already talked about this a little bit. Do they exhibit hunger, humility, emotional awareness, and spiritual
Hmm.
maturity?
Yeah.
Compatibility, here's a big one.
Yeah.
Are they compatible with your church's vision, values, and culture?
Yeah.
You have to be a little bit sneaky with this when you're interviewing.
Yeah.
When I was in the corporate world, they taught us how to do behavioral based interviewing.
Okay.
And what that means is you're asking the candidate to reach back into their work experience or even into their school experience
Yeah.
to give you an answer to a question that they don't really know why you're asking it. So
Okay.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
One of our core values is healthy work rest rhythm. So when we're inviting somebody to join the team, we don't say, well, this is one of our values, agree or disagree. That's what they're going to say. Of course
Mm.
I agree.
Right. Right.
Now here's how we get there. I ask them, tell me about a time either in a previous job or even at school where there was more work to do than time to do it.
Hmm.
How did you manage that?
Good. Now, what's the real question you're asking by asking that question?
What I want to know is, are they a workaholic? Do they have
Gotcha.
workaholic
So
tendencies?
I just worked harder. I didn't sleep for three
Yeah.
nights. I didn't take a day off for 2 months. They're thinking in some ways that's they're valuing that. And
And
they're
and so the
yeah,
flag goes up.
yeah, yeah,
Do you see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
learning this skill of behavioral based interviewing is
yeah,
really, really helpful when it comes to compatibility. A couple of other things, chemistry.
yeah. Huge.
Are they going to get along with the existing team?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, I recommend something like DISC.
Yeah.
Uh, the assessment's helpful with
Yeah.
that. Enneagram is pretty helpful with that
Mm-hmm.
as well. And then here's the last one under the profile, and that's compensation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By the way, I'm pretty, I'm of the opinion that even though this is number 5 on our list, the compensation conversation should happen way early.
Yeah. Me too.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
spend 3 weeks with somebody only to get down to the compensation talk and realize they can't live on what we're asking
Yeah.
them to live on. So
Yes.
I like having the compensation discussion very early
Yes.
in
Yeah.
the arrangement.
I agree.
So create this profile. So we've given you 5 things. I know it's a ton. I know it's super technical. Here's the last one, and this might be the most important thing we tell you,
Yeah.
and we've saved it for last. Don't settle.
Yes.
Don't settle. The wrong hire will cost you more than waiting for the right hire.
Yes.
And let me reiterate what we said at the beginning of this episode. Don't An empty seat, it's better
Yeah.
than a seat filled by the wrong person.
Yes.
And when I say wrong person, it again, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying they're inherently evil.
No.
It's they
No.
just don't have those qualities that are necessary in your
Yeah.
environment. So Jim, that's what I have
Love it.
on this episode.
Love it. Yeah, John, well, like you say, there's a lot of information, but let's say someone had everything but one piece of that and they're getting ready to hire somebody. I think that one piece could make all the difference in their hire right now,
I think
right?
so.
And the same thing's going to happen next week as we talk about what happens on the other end of this when a season is expired or we got lied to in the interview process, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I really think that as you said, this is a very expensive thing emotionally, financially,
Yes,
spiritually. Whatever you hire them to do, they will become somebody's pastor. So it's hard on your congregation if you hire the wrong person. They
100%.
cause division. They go in a different direction. They form, yeah, it's a mess. But the right person, man, they're like family. they
Mhm.
stay, I don't know. It's just fun. The difference. I remember I had a staff one time. First time I ever hired people. I hired two people, and it was a disaster. But I didn't know it because I had nothing to compare it to. And so
Mhm.
I wrote in my journal after they were both gone, I will never work with a divisive or argumentative staff again. And I was hiring people, I was saying, listen, here's the one thing I ask. If you got an idea, that's great. Let's talk about it, but we're going to get along or you're going to get out. I mean, I
Mhm.
absolutely insist. And about, 3 months after they were gone, the new team was there. I thought, I didn't realize it could be this much fun to lead a church. So if you're in a
Mhm.
position right now where your leaders, your volunteers, your paid staff are driving you crazy, I don't know. I would listen to next week's
Yeah.
podcast. But if you're thinking about hiring your first person or empowering people to serve in your church, I'd listen to this week's podcast very carefully
Yeah.
and take these steps.
And Jim, there's one more thing that I
Yeah.
I failed to mention, not in my notes, but I was just reminded of how important it is as a hiring person
Yeah.
to pay attention to what the Spirit is saying to you.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
probably should have
good.
put that up front.
I was gonna say it's kind of, yeah, remarkable we got here, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The times when I've ignored that check in my spirit
Yeah.
and I've pushed ahead and brought somebody on board,
Mm-hmm.
100% of the time, I've regretted it.
Yeah.
So, Pastor, don't diminish that piece of it. And some of you
Yeah.
are saying, "No, that's all I only do. I just listen to the Holy Spirit." Listen, do
Yeah.
both.
Do both.
Listen to the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit,
Faith and
and
wisdom. Yeah.
yes, and use what we've given you today,
Yeah.
because together, I think your batting average will
Yeah.
go way up, and your health will go way up.
Yep.
Your church's health will go way up. So Jim, I am now officially done
Well, I'm
with
gonna add one
this.
more thing to that. If you
Okay,
don't have a check, but your wife does, or your
there you
spouse
go.
does, I mean, don't
Mm,
don't just listen to your gut. Let's listen to the people that you trust
that's
around
so
you as
good.
well. Because sometimes you're excited about this new hire, this new thing that's going to happen, and they're looking at it from a different perspective. So God will speak to the people around you as well as to you, and listening to the voice of wisdom from many counselors is a good thing. So John, thank you for this. This has been great. And again, you know, convergecoach.com/links or whatever, like click that link. Let's get together and talk. I got this guy, but I have these three concerns. We can help you with that. We might be
Yes, sir.
that third party neutral, not involved, that might give you the one piece you need to have the courage to pull the trigger or the courage to walk away. And we love that kind of stuff that makes our day when we help you with yours. So God bless you, our dear watchers and listeners. You're going to do a great job with this. We believe in you. God has entrusted something to you, so he believes in you. And keep going for it as you continue to lead from alignment.